Oh shit, here we go again.
Alright, so Bethesda has once again blessed us with a patch directed at the Anniversary Edition content for Skyrim Special Edition, which has once again broken everyone's mod list. That includes those that had downgraded the game to stay on the pre-AE, also known as the SE build, and those that were on the latest update, that being the latest AE build. And while it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as when the Anniversary update first dropped for the game, there are some very important things to note with this update and why it's worse than just the typical patch. So I'll be going over what this update means for your mod list and how to go about fixing it here in this video. So without further ado, let's roll the intro. Alright, so as I'm sure you're aware, following this update for Skyrim Special Edition from earlier this morning, you'll now get an error that you are using a newer version of Skyrim than this version of SKSE64 supports. This is one of the major pain points of having Creation Club forced into the main build of the game and no official way to stay on specific builds to circumvent Steam auto updates, as could be done with the built-in Steam functionality. It's just the unfortunate reality of how mods are implemented. There is no real way for Bethesda to prevent updates from breaking mods, as they are very much version dependent. So this isn't done maliciously, but it's definitely an annoying inconvenience when it comes to modding the game, especially if these updates don't address anything you care about. So how can you go about fixing your mod list in the meantime? Well, there are two options to get things up and running immediately without having to wait for SKSE64 to be updated and for the issues which we'll cover in this video to be ironed out with this update. This applies to both those that have an AE mod list from the previous build that would like to get things back up and running while waiting, or those that were using the downgraded SE build of the game, that being version 1.5.97, and got force updated by Steam. The first option of which is the Unofficial Skyrim Special Edition Downgrade Patcher by Helgari, which has indeed been updated earlier today for the latest build, which I do have a video tutorial on that can be found in the description or pinned comment that will run you through how to best use this utility. That said, I'll also be posting an updated guide as the UI has changed quite a bit, but the tutorial is still very much relevant to follow, and I'll also update the link to the new one once it has been uploaded. But for those of you that were asking for an updated guide, it is coming. Now, there is one downside to using this option, that being that it is a whopping 3 GB download and will take quite some time to run through the patching process. The reason being is it uses binary patching, which needs an overwhelming amount of data to properly downgrade the game, as it can't redistribute the official files. So for those of you who aren't able to download such a large file, the other option would be to use the Unofficial Skyrim Downloader, once again by Helgari. This was also updated earlier this morning to support the latest update, and it's much smaller, only coming in at just over 168 megabytes. And while this is most definitely the ideal way to go about downgrading your game, not everyone will be comfortable with the requirement of logging in with their Steam account using a third-party application. That said, this requirement is only because it uses the Steam API to download the old game files directly from the Steam servers, so it requires you to log in to verify that you actually own a valid copy of the game on Steam. And while I don't have a video on this utility yet, you can expect one releasing tomorrow morning that will run you through the process if needed. As for which version you'll want to use when downgrading or downloading an old build with these utilities, it's really up to your specific mod list. If you're wanting the SE build, you'll want to choose the 1.5.97.0, and if you're wanting the previous AE build before this update, choose 1.6.353.0, that being the previous build before today's update. Now, what about if you're not wanting to do either of those and just want to stay on this update, that being 1.6.629.0, and get your mod list to work with it? Well, first of all, you'll need to know that this might take a few days or even weeks, as there are some issues with this update. First things first, you'll need to wait for SKSE64 to be updated for the latest build, which at the time of filming this video, it has not yet been updated for the latest build of the game. It usually gets updated within 24 hours, but due to some of the issues with this update, it might take longer. So just keep that in mind. Beyond that, you'll also need to update address library for SKSE plugins by Meh321, which has thankfully been updated for the latest build as of this morning. And this is actually where things get a little bit more complicated with this update, as Meh321 noted in a pinned comment on the address library page that the game struct has changed, extra data list now has a vtable, That means everything using the test object reference, for example, will have all subsequent fields plus 8 offset. For mod authors, this means that you'll have to wait for common lib to update with the new info and recompile. And again, some plugins will not work between this version border of 1.6.353 to 1.6.629 due to this problem. And for mod users, if you are using a plugin from before 1.6.629 in version 1.6.629 or later, it may cause bugs or crashes or not work at all, depending on whether or not it is accessing any of the stuff that changed. So to boil that down, SKSE plugins prior to this new build of the game might very well break and will require to be updated individually, much like we saw following the original anniversary update. So if you run into any broken mods or crashing even after SKSE64 has been updated, it will likely come down to one or more of your mods requiring individual updates to address this change, which is made more difficult by also needing to wait for the modder's resource, common lib, to receive an update for this latest build. So mods affected by this could see significantly delayed updates. Of course, other major mods that don't use SKSE, such as Skyrim Together, have also been broken by this update, with Kasadeki putting out a big post about the situation. The new update to Skyrim is seemingly causing crashes for Skyrim Together Reborn when trying to load a save file. We'll try to fix this as soon as possible. For now, if you want to keep playing, do not update Skyrim to the latest version. We figured out what's causing the crashes. We'll try to push out an update as soon as possible. I cannot push out the update today as it requires Nexus to approve the mod, and we are nearing the end of business hours for today. I will try to have the new version uploaded tomorrow. The update to Skyrim will break a lot of SKSE mods, so be aware of that. Hopefully, SKSE will block those mods from even loading so that you don't randomly crash. On another note, you cannot use an older version of Skyrim with the latest version of Skyrim Together starting tomorrow. So if you want to play Skyrim Together today, you'd have to follow the downgrade methods I mentioned earlier in the video to go back to the previous AE version of the game. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for things to get sorted out with the mod. And with this update affecting Skyrim Together Reborn, I wouldn't be surprised if other non-SKSE mods are also affected by this latest patch. Of course, we don't know yet just how much damage this will do to the modding community until SKSE64 is updated and we can experience for ourselves just how many SKSE plugins and beyond have been broken by the new updates for the Creation Club content. Now, whether these changes had some significant reasons such as upcoming creations or to align with something coming to Fallout 4's Creation Club, we'll have to wait and see, but this is once again an unfortunate inconvenience for modding Skyrim Special Edition. My personal suggestion would be to downgrade to either the previous AE build or the SE build, whichever your mod list is dependent on, and avoid future updates by disabling automatic updates for Skyrim on Steam and only launching the game with SKSE. Just ensure that Steam is already opened when launching with SKSE, otherwise it will still trigger the auto update. As always, if there is any further information to follow this update, such as bigger than expected issues, major mod updates, or further patches by Bethesda, I will be sure to cover it here on the channel. So if you're not already subscribed and would like to stay updated on the latest modding and open world RPG news, I'd love for you to join me. That said, there are two videos on screen, the left being the downgrade patcher tutorial, the right being a video that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. But that's it for this video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, this is Apoqsi signing off.